So tonight we are talking about creating a portfolio. I like how this slide deck gives me like this nice pink tint because it's on my big screen. So what I would love to know is where you're at in your portfolio creation process. Are you almost ready to go and just here for a little bit of tips? Are you almost there, but not quite ready to expose yourself to the world? Do you have some samples in mind, but you don't know where a portfolio is supposed to go? Are you just overwhelmed by the whole thought of it? Or were you unaware that a portfolio is something that instructional designers do pretty regularly? Wherever you're at, it's fine. We just like to know because we like to know what to focus on, what to talk about, how to help you, that kind of thing. So, it looks like a lot of people just don't know where to start.
It can be intimidating getting started. You know, you look at all these really nice portfolios and you think, when am I going to have the time to make this? And the answer is, you don't make it all at once.
Oh my gosh, no.
Drive yourself crazy. Piece by piece.
Piece by piece. 100%. Oh, and Rachel pointed out something that the people here with TPLD and the people who have office hours on the TPLD website will look at your portfolio and give you some feedback if you set up some time with us. So definitely take advantage of that. No, but that's great. That is why we're here tonight, is because you haven't started yet. So that's kind of how we're going to approach things tonight. Why do I need one? Where do I start? What do I do? Right? So we'll just jump right in. Why do I need a portfolio? Well, first of all, you can say that you are engaging and create beautiful learning experiences, and that everyone thinks your designs are super lovely and terrific, and that's great. But as a hiring manager, I could say that I'm really good at skateboarding. Secret is I've never skateboarded, right? So it gives you some way of validating what you're saying and how you're describing yourself, but also at the same time, it allows you to kind of connect more with the hiring manager. So what I think is pretty and professional and attractive may not be the same thing that Sarah thinks is pretty and professional and attractive. And so it not only lets you kind of back up what you're saying about yourself, but it lets your potential employer kind of see if they vibe with you, see if they like your style, see if your style is appropriate for the role that they're hiring for, that kind of thing. And more than ever, it ups your marketability, because back when I was transitioning into instructional design in like 2017, just a few years ago, it was like you should probably have a portfolio, but people find jobs without one. Now it's like, I've met a couple of hiring managers who literally won't hire someone without a portfolio. And that's not always the case, of course. But with this market and just as many people who are entering the field as there are right now, you kind of need to have one to stand out. Because if it's down to you and one other person at the end of the interviews, and you both nailed the interview and you're a great fit for the company, but that person has a portfolio and you don't, that's an easy choice for me as a hiring manager, unfortunately, and it's just, Tyler, it's like resume, LinkedIn link, portfolio, right? The other thing is, now that I'm hiring for a position, one of the reasons that I'm only looking at candidates who have a portfolio is because I'm not going to be asking them to make some kind of work sample during the interview process. So I want to see their work, and I don't want to ask them to spend time to make it So that's why I'm counting on their portfolio, because I want to talk about their design process and I want to see that. The other thing is that it makes you stand out. So think about how many people are probably applying for the same remote instructional designer position that you're applying for. Sometimes LinkedIn is cruel and it tells you how many other people have applied, which can be kind of depressing, because it's like, oh yeah, 299 applicants. And you're like, oh, great. So it's me and 299 other people. Awesome. But just the style, the examples, even, fun fact about yourself that you share on your portfolio website can stick with a hiring manager, right? And so, for example, I might be like, okay, I'm going through these 5 people that I know I really liked, but I can't really keep them all straight. It's been such a blur. I've done so many interviews. Aaron's the one that did that really pretty e-learning on orchids, right? And I can, remember that, oh yeah, she's the one that had the orchids, right? It gives them a way to kind of remember you and make you stand out. Okay, so if I've successfully convinced you now that you need a portfolio, and if I didn't convince you, if Sarah yelling at you in the chat, you will need to make a portfolio. If that works, then next we need to talk about where you go to do this, right? Man, I remember it wasn't that long ago, maybe like 2010. I had, for like teaching jobs, I would take my portfolio as a binder with me to my interviews. It's not a thing anymore. So we have to find a new method of getting our portfolio in the right hands, right? So, and Kelly, that's a really good question. You might need to do some tweaking to your grad program portfolio. The ones that I've seen that come from grad programs are usually not only geared towards K through 12, but they're also like based on a rubric and maybe don't fit with how like people in the industry are doing it. I think that your assignments that are going in the portfolio, you can probably use. You might just want to play with like the organization and kind of how things are laid out. It depends on your assignment, really. But there are tons of places, and there's a handful of places here that are free and easy to use. And the way Sarah's ordered this, it's like limited customization, user-friendly, to a little bit more difficult to kind of customize and understand. Although they all kind of have the same base functionality, right? One of the issues is that if you have projects that export to SCORM or HTML5, the big ones are going to be your Camtasia Interactive and Storyline and Captivate. You'll want to note that you have to host those somewhere else and then link out to them in your portfolio. We won't get into too much of that today. When Sarah, do you share these slides? Yeah.
Yes, we will share these slides with the last webinar recording and the last webinar materials as well that you haven't received yet, that I promise is up and coming. And when you do get them, these are clickable links. So you can just click those and check it out. I will say Google Sites, something to be aware of is that the actual Google Sites gets a bad rap because a lot of people don't know how to maximize it to its full potential, because it does come with templates. Always avoid the templates like right off the bat. You need to customize it. And that's for anything that you do in instructional design, because if you're using templates, then you're not really showing them what you are capable of. And it's a good way to get your application thrown out if if I were a hiring manager and I saw someone coming in with just templates and I would think that they weren't trying to put a lot of effort into showing their skills. But yeah, so Google Sites, even though it gets a bad rap, if you need to get your own domain name, this is highly, highly, highly recommended because it makes you come across as more professional and it's more memorable. And if you get your own domain name and you customize it enough, they won't be able to tell it's a Google site. Like, how many of y'all know that our website is a Google site? Erin jazzed that up to the nines. Okay, so it is possible. It is a little bit more user-friendly than some others, but just kind of be aware of those before digging into that one. Sorry, Heidi.
No, you're good. Don't apologize. Yes, but as Sarah mentioned, oh, by the way, I use Wix. It's unpopular. Everybody I talk to uses Google Sites, so it just really depends. I used Wix a long time ago, so that's what I was comfortable with. It really is. Oh, nice, Anna. Thank you. Another Wix person. But it really depends on just what you're familiar with and what you're comfortable with. So if you want to sign up for a couple of them, give them a try and see like which one's functionality just suits you better, you can do that too. But there's also a link in the slides on the benefits of having your own domain name and how you can pay for that. And if you are lucky enough that yourname.com isn't currently purchased, typically, as long as you don't share a name with a famous person, you can, for like approximately $12 to $15 a year, purchase your domain name and connect it to your website. Yay, Debbie owns her own domain.com. I own my own domain.com, mostly because my name's Heidi and it's not that common of a name. I just really wanted to have my own.com. Just the idea of it just sounds so, I just love it, right? So yeah, pick one of those sites. I vote for Wix. Erin, do you use Google Sites for yours as well, your portfolio?
Yeah, mine is a Google site. And I own my domain name. I own erinchancellor.com. It was $12 a year. And
That's
Google
cool.
Sites is free. So
right.
That's
yeah.
erinchancellor.com. Yeah.
So for $12 a year, you can have your own website.
Erin, how did you get it for that price?
I followed through. I followed the advice of a friend. I went to and it was a little tricky.
Tucker has it on her website where it says at $2.49 a month or something.
A month.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a Google domain.
Yeah. If you go to Google Domains, they have them for like starting at $12 a year.
Let me drop in the chat. Yeah. Let me pull those.
Perfect.
So all of these with Squarespace and with WordPress, they do have, some of them do have add-ons that you can use in order to actually put your projects, your SCORM projects in there. But many of them you'll have to link out, like Heidi was saying, using something like BitBalloon or GitHub or Amazon Web Service.
Yeah.
Those are the three that I just mentioned have free components to them. They do also have premium components. So just be aware of that. There is a learning curve. Mm-hmm. What I highly recommend personally, if you're doing an articulate project, publish it to Review 360, copy that bad boy URL, and you link the picture. Because ain't nobody got time for that. Okay.
Why not?
Yes, I agree.
So what goes in this portfolio? This is where most of you have seemed to fall today, where you've said, man, I don't know. I just don't even know where to start. Well, from my point of view, and I can't speak for all hiring managers out there because I'm sure that this is not the case with everyone, but I want to know who you are first and foremost. If I had a choice between someone who has never worked as an instructional designer before, but who has the skill, who's flexible, who's motivated, who is really excited to learn more about the field, versus a storyline expert who is kind of a jerk, I'm going to pick the inexperienced person all day long, because that I can work with. A jerk, not as easy to work with, right? So I want to know who you are. Give me just a short introduction. It doesn't really have to be something long. Keep it kind of short, your overall career background, what kind of work you're looking for, and just kind of like a couple of really high level career achievements, right? The next thing is your contact information. I always tell people that on every page of your portfolio, there should be at least one way to get to your LinkedIn and your email, just to make things easy. A lot of the websites we mentioned have like little social media buttons that you can stick onto your portfolio. So it's really a nice thing to have, that no matter where I stop looking at your portfolio, I can then contact you. You don't want to put your phone or your address. Sometimes just having like your phone number out there, you can get like spam phone calls. So if you really want to put a phone number, you can get like a Google phone number or something that's for free, that's not really connected to you. But that's kind of more of a nice to have than or optional, but I wouldn't want somebody calling me randomly. So picture of you is important. I just want to know what you look like. I want to know who you are. I want to look at your portfolio and get the vibe, right? Like I want to be like, yeah, I think I have a good idea of what Erin's like. Yeah, I definitely think I have a good idea of what Sarah's like. I want to be able to get that from just working through your portfolio. The other thing is the work samples, because of course, that's the whole reason you put together your portfolio, right? So you want to have a handful. Depending on who you ask, the number is different, but I like to just say a handful, whatever that is for you. That works. 3, 5, 7, I don't know. Sarah, what do you usually tell people?
I was typing.
It's okay. How many?
What do I tell people? I tell people
how many works? How many work samples do you suggest?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so my recommendation, and this is based on research that I've read over several different websites and recommendations for it, is your sweet spot is 3 to 5. Okay, your sweet spot's 3 to 5. Those are the ones that you should showcase, that should like smack you across the face. Here's my 3 to 5. Now, if they want to see more than 3 to 5, that's when you have the button below. Click here to see more, or click here to see additional work samples. It's fine to put additional work samples. Do not put everything in the kitchen sink, because that's overwhelming. And it also kind of comes across as you might struggle to identify what's truly cream of the crop. And that's a really important skill for ID, because we have to take a look at content and say, okay, what are the bare bones that I need? Because time is money, okay, in corporate. So the less amount of time that they can spend in training that's effective and it gets the objective done, that's what they want. They don't want all this extra fluff where you're talking about the moon and the stars and all that stuff, when all they really want to know is how to cut their grass. Okay. Like, so that is an important ID skill. Everything that you do really does subconsciously lead back to what you do as an ID. So always kind of have that ID mindset when you're looking at any of your application documents.
For sure. No, that's great advice. Like I said, a handful. Right? The other thing is testimonials. So do you guys remember back before the internet, where like you used to have to just like drive by a restaurant and be like, whoa, that restaurant is new. That looks cool. Let's go try it out. Now
I still do that. Is that not done anymore? Yeah.
Man,
my fiance gives me so much crap. He's like, you're gonna base a restaurant based on the sign. I'm like, yeah, it looks nice. It shines.
Like, especially if I'm not like, especially if I'm out of town, especially if I'm traveling, like it's like Yelp 4 stars or above, right? I'm not messing around with it if it's not 4 stars or above, right? So the same thing goes with your portfolio. If you have someone who you've worked with or who knows your work, who is nice enough to say nice things about you, go ahead and add that to your portfolio so you get that 4 stars and above. And then last but not least is your resume. So this is optional, and it kind of depends on how often you update your resume, and if you update your resume for every different position to be different, you might not want to put that on your portfolio site. But in the off chance that someone happens across your portfolio site naturally, it could be a really good thing to have so that they know that you are looking for a position. So just make sure you remove your personal information before you put your resume on your portfolio. Debbie asks, so before we get our first ID job, we just need to look for friendly colleagues or acquaintances for testimonials. Not necessarily. I think testimonials are good to have, but I wouldn't put that at the top of my priorities list, right? I would just, if you have reference letters, you can just pull pieces from past reference letters for other positions. Even if they are like teaching geared, the nice things and like kind of the soft skills qualities that people say about you probably are transferable for sure. Okay. So what are some key things to consider when deciding where to host your website? You can answer on the web or you can answer in the chat here.
Hey, Heidi, while everyone's kind of typing in their thoughts and stuff, can I throw a question or two your way?
Sure.
So about testimonials, that's not really something like in like K-12 or whatever, like we don't really come across that. I feel like I associate testimonials with like customer service reviews. Like when I worked at a boutique, I would say like if they went on Yelp and said nice things about me, like I would consider that a testimonial. What do you consider a testimonial?
So maybe reference is kind of a better way to frame it because it is kind of the same thing as a reference, but I'm going to let Sarah answer that.
And so would it need to come from a manager or a supervisor? Someone in that kind of capacity?
So that's kind of the difference between a reference and a testimonial. A testimonial can come from anyone who has experience with your work. So it could be from a client, it could be from a manager, it could be from a coworker, it could be from someone in the group who has looked at your items and they're a credible source, of course. And so all those are testimonials. Typically, testimonials, you can it'll be like a quote or two, whereas a reference is typically like a letter or more full length. And a reference typically comes from your hiring manager or a supervisor that you had throughout the years. Testimonials, you can ask these of people on LinkedIn. I know a lot of people there's actually a function on the LinkedIn website where you can ask people to give you a recommendation. You can copy and paste those recommendations and put them on your portfolio too. So you can definitely do that. If Heidi, myself, Tyler, Cheryl has seen your work and you would like to ask for a testimonial, we can work with that. Please know that that might take some time to get across because we do quite a few things and it does get a little bit hairy over here in that regard. But definitely ask people that you've worked with, principals, other teachers that you've worked with. If you can, try and get an instructional design mentor. You can also post in the group asking, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. Is anybody up for that? Great question.
Cool. I've got some other ones next time we come to a question break.
Sure.
Wait, we didn't go over how we weighed in.
I know, I just realized that. And now it's gone. Oh, no, it's not.
Oh, they come back.
Here. Oh, thanks. That's so nice of them. Cost. Cost is the big one, right? Like we said, there are options. Google Sites. Wix has a free one, but I think it puts Wix all over it. Does Google Sites do the same thing? Like, do you see the Google Sites? Do you know it's Google Sites if you don't pay for it? Yeah. Okay. So,
because the URL is like hella long and it says,
oh yeah,
Google sites.
Gotcha. Wix like puts the little thing on the actual screen too, like this was made by Wix or powered by Wix or whatever, you know. But free and customization, personalization, accessibility, functionality, some type of forever domain. Oh, that's a good one too. That is a good one. Although, yeah, you're going to see tonight that I've had one of my Wix websites for a really long time. And because it's it's associated with a free account, it's existed for years. So yeah, domains are forever as long as you pay the annual, but like the work that you do on a Wix or a Google site, depending on your account with that group, may not be forever connected, if that makes sense. If you were to get like kicked out of that website or however. So now what? Okay, I've got my own .com with my name on it and everything. What do I put in there? A flagship project is something that you can read a little bit more about when you get the slides, but basically it's meant to show your design process from the very beginning to the very end. And so it's more of it's more of the focal point of your portfolio, and you can include, you know, the different documents or the different steps or the different things associated with the process of design for that project. And it can include any of like the things below here, these other bullet points. But really the point is just to kind of show your process. You can do e-learnings, videos. If you do your own voiceover, you can do that as well. A lot of companies that you may work at may not spend the money to hire voiceover talent. So you may end up having to do that anyway. So, you know, why not showcase it and show that you have a nice voice? Job aids, infographics, storyboards for projects, slide decks for virtual instructor-led training, things like that. GIFs, which you can make through PowerPoint. I love watching Sarah quickly make a GIF in PowerPoint. I can't do it, so I won't show you how, but if you Google how to make a GIF in PowerPoint, I bet you'll find out. Photos that you've edited, photos that you've put together, photo collages, things like that, illustrations, animations, scripts. There's just any number of things that you can showcase. Templates that you've made. If I was Sarah, I would put this PowerPoint template in my portfolio.
Heck yeah, that's actually what I was thinking when I made it. I'm like, I don't have a slide deck on there.
It's beautiful.
I should make one. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will also add to Heidi's points here about putting these types of projects on there. Put your design thinking about it too. So who was your intended audience? What was your budget like? What was your time frame like? What process did you go through to design? Did you do did you make a survey to pass out to people who've experienced it? Did you do a first iteration and then you have a second iteration? Talk about what you did and why you did it. It's great to show an end product, but just like in teaching, they think, oh, well, then it's so easy. Anybody could do it. Right. And so it doesn't hold the same impact or weight as it does when you like see the thinking behind it. Then you see, oh, that's why they chose those colors. Oh, it makes sense that they put this activity there because it shows or it adheres to this learning theory and is backed by scientific evidence. Perfect. Great. Now I understand more about why this is a good product. It's like selling it, right? You can say, yeah, this car is good. And they'll be like, yeah, I'm not paying that for the car. But if you're like, if you were driving in this car and the top was down and, you know, you just have people looking at you and you're shining and it's almost like you're a brand new person, you know, it's just, you start envisioning yourself in the car, right? So when you describe your design thinking, they start envisioning you in the role. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing.
for sure. So here's some overall do's and don'ts, right? Do customize it. Have a flagship project. Have something that is the kind of focal point of the portfolio part of your portfolio, or of the work samples part of your portfolio, I guess. Don't forget to put your contact info. I tell people to put at least your LinkedIn button on every page. Have somebody proofread. I don't know about you guys, but if I look at something 100 times, I am not going to see my own typo. I can look at it 1,000,000 times and I'm not going to see my own typo. But if somebody else takes a look, they're going to be like, why did you spell that word wrong? Right? So have somebody take a look at it and, you know, sanity check you, right? Not even just proofread, but even just look at, okay, did you look at it on mobile? Did you look at it on a website? You know, just the different ways to access it to make sure nothing is wonky, right? Don't put too much information, right? You're going to meet different kinds of hiring managers. You're going to get the hiring manager that just wants to make sure that you have a portfolio and spends 2 minutes on it, right? Okay, yeah, this looks good. This person seems legit. Let's talk, right? You're also going to find hiring managers who want to dig into every little piece and part. So you don't want it to take them too long, especially if they want to look at the whole thing, because then that's just going to get pretty tedious. Do not use a template as is. God forbid the hiring manager also uses Canva or Wix or Google Sites or whatever for their instructional design projects. And I am a hiring manager who also does design work. So like I'm in Canva a lot. If I recognize something, I'm going to know that that wasn't really you. That wasn't really your best effort put forward. And for some people, I recently just put a post on LinkedIn about, you know, doing a work sample for your actual interview. And I found that a lot of hiring managers have also found kind of like people who plagiarize their portfolios on the internet and use other people's work. So I don't want them to think that because you used a template and didn't customize it enough that you are one of those plagiarizers or scammers, right? So just make sure that you change things enough so that they're really your own. Don't be super formal or cold. Find that like nice, professional yet personal voice, and don't wait until it's perfect to publish it. You know, I know that the question that a lot of teachers have is like, can I use stuff from teaching? And my answer is, of course you can. We have your resume. We know you were a teacher. You know, it'd be great to see 1 or 2 examples that are outside of teaching, but like, why not leverage what you've already done and what you already do every day? Because that's going to be where some of your best work is anyway. So, you know, if I know that you're an educator and you're coming into the field, I would almost expect to see something that has to do with what you taught in your portfolio, if that makes sense. So before we get in and look at a couple of example portfolios, including a really bad one, that's mine, I just want to encourage you guys. I know Sarah mentioned it at the beginning. If you have a portfolio that you'd like feedback on, we're going to do a quick gallery walk this evening. So if you want to drop those links in the chat, Sarah or Erin will get them, nab them and be able to put them on a Jamboard so that we can take a look. So that everybody.
Look, my dears.
Yeah.
If you have a portfolio, it will never be perfect. And that's okay because they're working documents. If you wait until they're perfect, you will never launch it. You just won't. So I know it can be scary to show your work. And we're not saying you have to, but if you have a portfolio, this is, even if it's in the very beginning stages, this is your opportunity to get some real feedback on it from peers. This is your opportunity to get feedback on it from the mentors of our group. this is a good time to share your portfolio.
It's a really good
We're
time.
not here to judge.
Mm-hmm.
I know it feels like that, but there's a difference between providing feedback that is actionable and caring versus here to say, that looks like crap. Okay, like we're not here to do that. I promise.
Sarah's gonna say that about mine. Give it like 3 slides.
No,
Girl, I say that about mine.
I have to jump in and say that last fall when I met Sarah, when she was doing these webinars, I had I was using like Adobe Portfolio free trial or something like that. And I had just started thinking about like how I wanted to work, the portfolio to work and how I wanted it to look. And all I had were pictures that I'd taken from my iPhone and like pictures of me like in Maine and like flowers. And that was it. And it was kind of set up that way. And I shared my portfolio and we went out into breakout rooms, and Mandy Brown told me that she could tell that I was adventurous and that it showed my playful side. And I have carried that into the portfolio that to erinchapter.com now. So it made made a huge deal for me to share that like dinky little, I don't even remember what it said, Erin Chancellor, and then some pictures or something like that I was a teacher. I don't even remember what I said, but Mandy Brown said she could tell that I looked adventurous and it was playful because I shared my portfolio.
That's wonderful.
Last fall.
Love it.
So you should drop your portfolio links in the chat.
Yeah, we've got a couple. We're warming up. We're warming up. Erin, do you have a couple questions for me in the meantime? I'm gonna wait people out here for a couple more minutes.
Yeah, they're starting to come. They're starting to come.
And then also while we're waiting for those links, we're gonna look at some portfolios that from people you might recognize. So we're gonna go over those. We're gonna practice as a group together. We'll pull those portfolios shared in the chat into the activity that comes after our group activity. So what'll happen is Erin will pull up a portfolio, and we would like you to put in the chat. First, we're going to talk about things that were done really well or that you really appreciate that follow the items that we talked about today. And then Heidi will let you know when it's time to provide areas of opportunity or suggestions. Not like Heidi said, everybody has a different aesthetic. Everybody has an opinion, right? It's okay to share yours. It might be different than others, so just be respectful. Remember, we're not here to bash anyone. We are here to give actionable feedback.
So we're going to look at Kara North's portfolio. Isn't this beautiful? And what I would love you guys to do is to tell me what you like about it. Tell me what you like about this.
Colorful.
Yeah.
Easy block layout. Variety. Thanks for joining, April. I'm just going to assume everyone's laughing with us. Debbie said that she loved the prominence of Kara's name and the word learning and having her photo right there.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah.
Same. You should always tell them what type of portfolio it is. I've had that question recently because there's tons of different types of portfolios out there. So you want to say this is an instructional design portfolio or an e-learning specialist or a learning experience designer, whatever role that your primary role that you're going for, make sure that you put that under your name and it's front and center so that they don't have to hunt and peck to figure out who you are and what you're doing.
For sure. What would you change about this particular portfolio?
And we're going to drop that link in the chat too, so that you can explore and actually see the website.
KaraNorth.com. So some people are thinking that it's too much like for your eyes all at once, like it's overwhelming, just all at once. And that it might be nice if it was a little less cluttered looking. It kind of has like the color look. It's a little overwhelming. The work samples seem smooshed together. So there's some ideas or some thoughts like that.
Yeah, that was my thought too.
They're thinking maybe dividers or spacers between the blocks. like putting a little bit of
Sure.
space in between each
That makes
sample.
sense.
Yeah, I
More
think
subdued
Zoe,
colors.
yeah, I think Zoe tacked on to that one. Is hard to know what each project is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think on the website you can click into each one, but it is very separate, right? Well,
And-
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, Leslie said categorize the samples.
Yeah, that too. If this one's busy for you, you might like that segue. You like that?
That was good.
That
was
love
that was really good.
the layout of Devlin Peck's portfolio. This is my jam. Like this makes me like calm. This calms me down. Here, I'll put this link because it's not just his.com.
Yep. So that please click on the link so that you can interact with the website as we're looking at it. So we're going to start with things we like.
I love his logo.
It's so simple.
Yeah, that was a big inspiration for me as well. Just it's great. Sure. I love his logo. I love it. He's got good letters too to work with. The D and the P.
His name just looks good. Yeah.
Kelly says, an organized person. It's calming for me too. Projects are clear. That's from Marley Molina. I love how thumbnails are like the user views. Emily says, as someone who likes neat organization, I appreciate how clean and organized it looks. Leslie says, I love how Devlin puts pictures of his projects into the devices that the users are using. Yeah, that's pretty clever. I like the brief descriptions. Black seems to indicate a serious professionalism, no fluff. Love the descriptions. Yeah, I would have to say the same. Yeah, I'm gonna let Heidi talk about it though.
I like that there are the brief descriptions, but I like that if you click on the learn more button, you get that full, here's what the assignment was, here's what my design process was, here was, you get the details. So depending on what you want to look at, and there's quite a few different samples, but depending on what catches your eye, for me, it was the GitLab one. I can then dive in deeper and look at whatever that is. And it's also, there are different kinds of examples too, right? Like there's e-learning, but there's also an app. How many people have an app in their portfolio? I sure don't. So, it's really, and I believe that the technique that he used to make these little thumbnails is like stock photos that just have a white space where the screen goes, and then you just Photoshop your project onto that little screen. It's a really cool.
Those are called mock-ups, by the way.
Thank you.
For those, you can get them on pexels.com, Unsplash. You can get them if you just type in free mock-ups. A lot of times they'll pop up. If you have a Storyblock subscription, you do have to pay for it, but their mock-ups are solid. Just saying. But you can, like Heidi said, you can also Photoshop them really easily.
Yeah. What would you do differently if you were Devlin Peck? Nothing.
I've noticed when looking at his portfolio, and it's exquisite. It's stunning. It's amazing. It has a lot of stuff on it. Like a lot. There are a lot of projects. Not saying that's a bad thing. It's a little bit different, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's worth noting that there's a lot. It's so
like
nicely
I said,
organized.
Yeah.
So beautiful, but it's a lot.
Because they do have, each one has those details. Like I said, I only really dove into one of them, but Tyler is a fanboy.
They're beautiful.
He has so much good content, not just like the portfolio, but like his videos, like everything.
Oh yeah. He has a lot of good stuff. Yeah, this is a good one. So here's another great segue. If you thought this was great, let's change the pace a little bit. So fun fact, you guys, This was my portfolio when I was transitioning into instructional design. And for whatever reason, I just kept it as like an extra thing on my Wix site. And so now it just exists. It's not my current website, and I've updated it since. A fellow Mary Oliver lover, which is great. But yes, it leaves a lot.
Hi, Emily.
Yes, bye, Emily. But we'll talk about, what do you like about it besides Mary Oliver?
I think it's cute that you said biography.
Right?
Right?
Like, how different are the terms these days, right? Like, I put higher education / instructional design. Like, people would not do that.
But I will say that, like, I really love the aesthetic that you have here. I feel like it is clean and pretty. It's feminine. I can tell that you have a natural eye just from the way that you set it up. And so I know you're being harsh on yourself, but I think it looks pretty. I do think there's a lot of scrolling.
Rachel found my phone number. Oh my God, where is it?
I have my phone number on mine too. Oops.
Oh, well. It's at the bottom.
Amy said the photograph makes her want to dive in and see what else is there.
See?
And I want to
There you
second
go.
that. It's a
That was the
beautiful
whole
opening
point.
photograph.
That's the whole point. What would you do differently? I'm going to tell you something that you won't find. In one of my portfolio examples, you might find it, but it takes a while to get there. I have a slide deck where I taught other teachers learning styles, which now would be a highly controversial
Hey.
topic.
Hey.
So we have some contributions in the chat. Your phone number's at the bottom. And Rachel says she got you now, Rolf, which is rolling on the floor, laughing.
Nice. I love it.
Some very, very highly qualified person said less scrolling. No, I'm just kidding. That was me. No, I would prefer less scrolls and some smaller pictures so I can get to the content quicker. Debbie says, I want a menu of your work samples right now, having to scroll through. Not much of an indication of what you have to offer. So a lot of space is being taken up by the picture, even though it is a pretty picture.
Yeah. You don't really find out much about me from the front page, do you? Right? I think I really like Kara's for that purpose.
Yeah. I would also recommend putting your contact information at the top. And the bottom. And maybe just all over. Probably the whole thing. Yeah. Just like stamp it randomly. It pops up. Have you noticed that Devlin's pops up? It's like, contact me. I'm like, oh, that's fancy.
No, I don't think I noted that.
Yeah,
that's great.
I love that.
It's perfect. All right. Well,
do y'all feel good and practiced? You ready to take on the big stuff here? Yeah. All right. So we're going to drop in the chat. It's a jam board. We're going to put you in groups of, how many we got? We got 30.
There are 6 total.
Perfect. So Erin's going to put you in a breakout room. And
I can't.
Yeah. How many breakout rooms?
6.
Sarah? 6.
Yeah. Perfect. And so you're going to work with your group, and on the Jamboard, I'm going to share right quick here, Heidi, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I like when people say share right quick.
Share right quick. I'm gonna share it. Share it right quick.
Do you hear that often?
No, I don't know where that is. I don't know where that
probably
comes
from me.
I just like it. I gotta share right quick.
I gotta share this right quick.
Love it.
Heidi, are you still sharing, friend?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was weird.
Oh, yeah.
Mine just must have froze or something. That's kind of weird. Okay, so this is the Jamboard. In your group, you're going to go through group 1. You'll start on slide 1. Okay. Group 2, you'll start on slide 2. Group 3, well, you get where I'm going with this. So after you and your group give some strengths for the portfolio that is in the middle sticky note, and give some areas of opportunity. Remember, we want it to be actionable. We want it to be kind. And we want to remember this should be objective, and these are people. So just kind of keep all of those things in mind when you're providing feedback. We're all here to learn and grow. So once you've done that, you can go to any one of the other ones, and we'll pull you back in about 20 minutes or so. Welcome back, everyone. It's so great to see you come back in our group. And before we get on to our Q&A portion, I did have a really great question in my group about work samples and K-12 and putting those on your portfolio. Here's the deal. If you want a job that's working to design educational material for youth, like Pearson, McGraw-Hill, that kind of stuff, then it's okay to have younger looking work samples. If you want to work corporate, I would not recommend having the school look. Also, with that being said, this is just facts. There's nothing wrong with this. It was the same for me. It was the same for Heidi. It was the same for Aaron. Whatever you made during your school days, I'm telling you right now, it's not good enough. It's not a good enough work sample. I'm sure it's beautiful, but if you think about the way we had to pump out material at the pace and the rate, even if it's a good activity, even if it looks okay, we weren't thinking about line weight or color scheme or how information flows across a page for the reader's eyes so it's more graphically designed to follow the rules of, like, we didn't have time to think about that because we had children to teach, right? So I'm telling you, if you want to use one of those samples from your school, you can, but it needs work. It's not out of the box ready to go on your portfolio. So I did want to talk about that right quick. Okay. Back to you, Heidi.
Thanks. Let's do Q&A. You have 2 minutes. No, I'm just kidding.
We're hope that's enough time to answer all your questions.
If you have a question, hurry up and ask it as fast as you can.
Everybody unmutes at once. It's good.
I think that there was a question. I think that all of the questions that have been dropped in the chat box have been answered.
Okay. Cool. Well, if anybody
I think that all the
wants
questions that have been in the chat box have been answered, but
feel free to come off mute. Feel free to drop in the chat. And it doesn't just have to be about this webinar. It can also be about ID in general. You have 4 people here that are in the thick of it. We're you know, this is a good opportunity. And that's great to hear, Debbie. Yay.
I'm trying to think of how to word this. Where could I come up with like an idea for what I am designing instruction on?
Yeah, no, I love that question. Sorry, I get really excited when I actually have a good answer.
Oh, geez.
So in our Slack channel, we actually have a channel specifically for ID design challenges that we put up. And Aaron will drop that link in the chat, but we also randomly put them in the group. There's a lady, her name is Dana, D-A-N-A. What's the last name?
K-O-C-H, I'll find her.
Okay. She posts lots of challenges. You can also use godesignSomething.co, not com, but co, C-O. The e-learning challenges are always a good time. There's also a really excellent webinar series on YouTube that Kara North put on. It's a 5-webinar series on building a Camtasia project from start to finish. It's fantastic. Any others that y'all can think of? Heidi, Tyler, Aaron?
Yeah, so it's not really a website, but the way I kind of break down like the suggestion of like what topic do I tackle is I ask people to think of like a couple different things. I ask them to think of the region where they're looking to work and what industries are popular in that region. So I live in Cleveland, and healthcare we have the Cleveland Clinic here, like healthcare is huge here. So that might be an area where I decide to choose a topic, and it doesn't have to be very, very specific, but, just think about the industry. If it's remote, what kinds of jobs are typically remote, right? Tech jobs, right? And again, it doesn't have to be super in the weeds, and like, you don't have to do it on brain surgery. It could be something as simple as like first aid or HIPAA or,
bloodborne pathogens that we all really want to remake that training, because we're all like, who made this and why?
Exactly. Bloodborne pathogens, AKA the worst training ever.
Every year you're like, where did they dig up this video? The 80s then?
Yes. So something
I'm bringing
like
that
that.
up.
Yeah.
Or think too about like technical skills that a lot of different people need on their jobs. So, Microsoft Office, right? Something as simple as like how to filter your emails in Outlook, something that's more of a technical skill that a lot of people are going to need to use in the workplace. Or on the other hand, soft skills. So what are some soft skills that you've been reading about, hearing about, growth mindset, emotional intelligence, things that like,
you could do
no
the
matter
learning theories
where,
too, if you really wanted.
I was thinking learning styles, and I was like, Sarah, why would you play people like this?
No, like the ID theories.
Learning theories. Yeah. Yes, of course. And then
take what you're learning about and teach it.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
For sure. And like I always say too, to like not make it all your samples, but like pick something fun for one of them too. Like pick something that's like a hobby of yours, so that people can kind of get that angle of who you are.
Yeah, I think too, you could make something as simple as, here's how you align and distribute evenly in PowerPoint or Articulate or Google Slides. Here's how to change an icon. Here's how to use different shapes. Like, it doesn't have to be a whole lesson on something. It can be a little 2 to 3 minute snippet. It doesn't have to be this big honkin' project, because quite honestly, recruiters don't have time to go through a big project. So, but it is good practice.
Heidi, may I present for a few minutes?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
I love how you call it presenting. You use Google Meets a lot, don't you?
No, I actually use Zoom. So I have very strong thoughts on this. And this is my own journal. I have not, are you all able to see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't had time to like work on my portfolio, so I don't have the right to comment on other people's portfolio. But this is what I was thinking that teachers need to do. So for guiding principles, your portfolio should showcase your expertise and abilities. So basically like use what you already know. And then it also needs to solve actual business problems. Like I'm very corporate focused minded because I work in corporate, and it's all about money and business problems. So those are the 2 guiding principles I would go by.
Can you give us an example, or like 3 examples of a business problem?
Yep. Business problems would be like, here's for the topics. One of them is like how to be an inclusive leader. Like diversity, equity, and inclusion are huge topics in corporations right now. And especially for management, like how to be an inclusive leader and use like inclusive language, like all of those things. That's a business problem, because I mean, DE&I is just a big problem that's not addressed well in general. Designing effective learning experiences. This is, I mean, that's your bread and butter as a teacher, but think about for managers, like every company has a ton of managers, but not every manager gets the right training. And if someone didn't know how to design effective learning experiences, then how would they ever do it? And you'll like, I find that a lot with like managers that I work with is like, they don't know how to like manage their direct reports or like show their direct reports how to do things because they've never like learned the science of it. So that's another thing. Providing effective feedback is another business problem. So performance reviews happen every year, and as a teacher, you give feedback literally every single day, every single hour. But for managers who have direct reports and aren't like familiar with like how to give effective feedback and like how to be professional about it, like how to deliver tough feedback, and they don't have a training for that, like that creates business problems. So yeah, so using these two guiding principles, I just thought like, what theme would I create for my own portfolio? And this would be the theme. I would create training for new managers because new managers don't get the training that they need to be effective managers. And then the second thing is that every company has managers. So wherever like you're gonna apply to, if you're gonna apply in corporate, like it's gonna be a win because like every company has managers and there's always gonna be new managers. And when you put all of this together, it'll help you like lighten the load of like what you need to learn, because then you can really just focus on learning the technical skills, like all the programs, because all of this knowledge, like how to give feedback, how to design learning experiences, like the zone of proximal development, these are all things that you already know. And so that's my 3-minute spiel. I'll stop sharing my screen here.
Well, no, leave it up, please, because I'm sure people are taking notes. Which is great. Thanks for sharing. We're gonna steal it because we're teachers and we beg, borrow, and steal.
Yes,
that's how we work.
Use all this.
Yes.
I will. Yeah.
I will say though, Tyler, I love the theme idea, but I could see where. So I started thinking, okay, well, if I was a recruiter and I saw something themed, I'd be like, oh, that's neat that it's all like related to one thing, but can they design for other things? And then that got me thinking, what if you had, like how you have it broken up by project, but what if you have your portfolio broken up by theme? So here is all about like learning or management, right? And then you would have maybe like an instructional video in there and then e-learning or something. And then another theme would have like a VILT or a user guide or whatever, but it's, it's theme. Oh, I love that. Sorry. I just wanted to share that.
And yeah, my perspective comes from like looking at a lot of portfolios, and I see like fun items being created and I see like teacher items being created, but just like thinking it from a business perspective, like everything, like it costs money to do all of these things. It costs money to hire instructional designers. It costs money to develop e-learnings. Like they need to know that they're going to get a good like ROI, like a good return on their investment. And the quickest way to do that is to showcase your own expertise and to solve actual business problems.
And with that being said, to Tyler's point, they want to make sure they're getting that return on investment. So make sure that you have objectives and anything that you include sticks to those objectives and is not that fluff that we were talking about a little bit earlier. They need to see that you are able to only include the most pertinent information that they need.